It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and anti-heroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name is Mike.
And welcome to our review of Deadpool and Wolverine, Marvel's 34th cinematic movie, Mike. I was doing the math.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah,
actually, Chris, you should have pulled me right there off the top of my head. If I had to guess how many
movies,
Marvel installments there were, I don't think I would have been in the 30s. But that is shocking and real.
By the end of next year, we'll have the number of movies that'll match how old I am. So it would have been one Marvel movie a year since I've been old. So really hitting close to home.
Chris, usually at the top of these podcasts, we tell people we're going to start spoiler-free, give everyone our review, and then, shoot the flare up, turn the sirens on, and let everybody know that spoilers are ready. But I think you kind of have to go see this movie sooner rather than later. The internet is ablaze with cameos, with surprises, with secrets. I don't really know how much we can say about this movie spoiler free. Should this be kind of our warning?
Well, yeah, I think we can do box office and then get into spoilers in case anyone's listening. But I will say, having watched this twice already, I don't think there's any spoilers that give away the movie. It would be, if anything, we would just give away the actual reveals in the film, mostly cameos, right? Like, there's nothing in there like, oh my god, this is going to change the Marvel Cinematic Universe forever. I don't feel that's in this movie. But yeah, I agree. Like, the spoilers are who was really in this movie, Mike, after all this time, after all the news we've been covering for the past 4 years? Who really made it into the final cut of this film? And did they show up? So yeah, let's talk box office real fast. Can we do that before we jump in the raise the flag here? Because
let's do it.
First and foremost, this movie, an R-rated film, and this will be an R-rated show probably just to match that of the film, is looking at over a $400 million plus opening weekend. Mike, it currently is sitting at $38 million on Thursday, $96 million on Friday, probably 100 to 105, if not more, come Saturday, which is today, and then whatever it makes on Sunday. So this movie will be at least $500 million by Monday. I feel confidently.
Chris, this movie passed the mom test. My retired mother was excited and looking forward to going to see this movie, and my brother took her yesterday because her birthday was earlier in the week. So not only did she want to go see this was like her birthday request to see Deadpool 3. On top of that, when I was talking to her on the phone the week before she went to go see it, she said, I don't even know if I've seen the first one, but I watched the second one recently. So it's just like the continuity doesn't matter, where this
the average person doesn't care.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, you want to go to the theater, you want to see Deadpool act a fool, and that's all people are looking for. That's all people want, and that's how you get $400+ million.
My dad asked me last night. I talked to him late on the phone. He's like, the first thing he's like, "Did you see the movie?" I'm like, "Yeah, I saw it." And he's like, "Was it worth seeing?" I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "All right." So I think they're going to go see it. My parents don't go to the movies very often for that. So same vibe. Everyone knows about this movie. Everyone wants to see it. It is, dare I say, Disney's goal to make event films has succeeded with this movie wholeheartedly.
They're trying to make it a thing again.
I went to the Thursday showing at 3 p.m. I've got the raunchy Deadpool bucket, Mike. You saw. I sent videos to Mike of me fist deep into that Wolverine bucket, which is wild because I can't believe they put the foam inserts before you get into the popcorn bucket. It's wild because you can get stuck in there. Then I went. I was asked to see it this morning, Saturday morning at 9:45 a.m. and that showing was more full than my 3 p.m. showing on Thursday, Mike.
That's good. That means the groundswell is going. I had a chance to see the movie, but also I have just not me personally, but my wife, given birth to a newborn. So we have a 3-week-old in the house. So even though I have just seen this movie, it might sound like me trying to recall information. Like I've seen it months ago because my life is in disarray right now. But it's Deadpool. You got to get out there.
He's got that dad, that new dad fog brain, right?
Well, yeah, well, it's I'm working out that muscle in my skull that like snatches kids before they like fall off of cliffs or before they run into like a circular saw. I'm working on those dad reflexes, and it's it's really flexing the brain right now. But so luckily Chris has seen it twice, so that's great. But you were talking about the popcorn bucket. Just out of nowhere, I feel like the merch has exploded. We tried to get all of the merch that we could ahead of time on the podcast last week on our normal news episode. But I swear, like, I'm seeing things that we never talked about before just popping up out of the woodwork. There's these awesome cups. Now, there's a couple different cups out there, so I have to describe it. There's a series of cups where it's like basically a long stretched out Deadpool mask and a long stretched out Wolverine mask, a la in cup shape. But these have really fun like straw toppers where it's Logan and Wade sitting in movie theater seats and they're like eating popcorn and like sipping a drink. Like the toppers are just really, really cute, and I almost just want to get them, throw the cups away, or I don't know, like use the cups for some sort of utilitarian purpose, but I just want the little toppers. They're really cute.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, we have racked our brains trying to figure out what the Regal popcorn bucket was. Remember that they unveiled this? They had a drink and a popcorn thing vessel months ago. They didn't reveal it. I just saw on a video someone got their hands on it's baby pool in a theater chair, and the top of it is a drink and the back of it's popcorn. So it wasn't even that. It was like announced but unceremoniously unveiled, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to have, but I got the one that everyone was showing off, so I feel pretty confident in that. A lot of people were going to the theaters just to buy the merch and then not going to the movie yet. Like, they were going early to buy the merch. It was kind of
that's what your wife did, right? That's what your wife did for you.
Well, we had to because that one's only AMC, so she went and picked it up. But we were going to the movie that day anyway, so it wasn't too bad. But she was just like, yeah, people were there just to buy the stuff. There's tiki mugs at AMC. If you go to their bar MacGuffins, they have like tiki mugs that are like, there's a Deadpool one that's red and a Wolverine one that's yellow. So absolutely, if you're looking to get some movie merch for this is out there. It's out and about. It's gonna be great. I expect a lot of costumes this Halloween of Deadpool or Wolverine, even at that. So, but yeah, so box office looks like it's gonna do great. No worries here. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw our number down on this. So if you have come this far, and we're gonna start talking spoilers because this movie. Is now out there. I'm making this motion. You probably should see it. So, full spoiler alert, Mike. We're going in strong with that. So
yes, it's a spoiler machine, and like we were saying, it's all cameo spoilers, which means it's also extraordinarily easy to spoil. Right? All you have to do is say a name. All you have to do is take like a sneaky picture with your phone in the theater, which you should not do. That's very distracting. But like that's all you need is like one little tiny JPEG or just one name out there, and then it's spoiled.
There are websites banking on people looking up the cameos right now. Like there was one list I saw I think Thursday night after I got out, and I was going through this. I'm like, a lot of these names weren't actually in here, so they were just putting SEO down just to mess with people as well. We'll talk a little bit about that as well as we kind of get into it.
So before we just start name dropping, which I feel like this is what the main spoiler cast is going to be, should we like attempt to kind of like review the movie like we usually do?
So if you care if I start, I'm fresh out of this, Mike. Let me
go ahead,
and maybe it'll help you kind of
get into it. Get into it.
So objectively, this movie sits in about a B range, I would say, objectively, if you look at it, because I will tell you this. The movie starts out in true Deadpool fashion. You get a really funny intro, very poignant, and it's like, oh, we're going to skewer the state of everything, and then it's like, okay, we had a flashback, and how did we get here? I'm pretty sure both Deadpool movies have opened this way. So all three of them start with like a pretty good action sequence, or start of an action sequence, and then they flash back. They tell you how we get there, then they catch you up. I think both of them did that. But I would say this suffers from, even the best Marvel movies have the weakest villains. And a lot of people will literally forget who Cassandra Nova is or what she has done by the time this movie is over, Mike. Because she is very irrelevant. She is there just to drive the plot forward a little bit. But from a subjective point of view, this movie's an A+ because I didn't go into it for the plot. I went into it for the comedy, the humor, the stories holding it together about Wade, trying to save his universe from anchor beans, and then he even says, "Wow, and what a exposition dump," kind of several times about this. So the story, not too much, but for people who have been watching Marvel movies for 30 years, almost 30 years, we're going to go back probably, was it 26 years now for this movie. References cutting 26 years deep. It is just fantastic. The dynamic between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, we finally see it pay off in this movie. We get to see some deep cuts and some characters that we've not seen in a long time. Some that didn't exist, but were almost going to exist, and then those movies got cut throughout the whole thing. So really, their journey, their action scenes, everything A+ to me. But objectively, it's still a Marvel movie with a very weak villain at the end of the day. So I'm gonna lean into my gut and say I loved it. LFG, Mike, let's fucking go. I loved this movie, but I understand from a filmmaking point of view, story's kind of weak. But I don't care. I got what I wanted out of this. We got the mask, Mike. We got the mask at the end of the day. It's just, ooh, my jimmies are rustled in a good way. So does that make sense? Does all that make sense? Like how I kind of laid it out there a little bit.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I think I'm pretty much aligned with your jimmies as well. But it's so funny. Usually, I feel like when I'm talking about Marvel films, I'm always going in, with this like eagle eye of like, don't ruin my universe here. This thing that I've attached myself to for the last, nearly 2 decades. I want these movies to be good. I want them to be crisp. I want everything to be perfect, and I weirdly didn't care going into this movie because I feel like the humor of it, the fourth wall breaking, the satirical nature of it just totally disarms you as a viewer, and you're just there to kind of be entertained. It's almost like, am I watching a movie or am I like just watching like a vaudeville stage show or something? Like, I don't like to be the person that says, just ignore a story and turn your brain off and have a good time. Like, yeah. I'm kind of saying that, but this is not a Fast and the Furious movie at all. This definitely has more artistic palette painted over it. But yeah, it does have the classic Marvel villain flaw, like Cassandra Nova. I'm not super familiar with the actor that played Cassandra Nova. I saw some other people were. They kind of reacted to the casting in a more positive way. So I don't really have any sort of affinity for the actor currently right now. So nothing really drew me into the character. I feel like if they could have spent a little bit more time showing us her backstory, or I don't know, maybe there was a flashback to her universe where we get to see her going toe to toe with some multiversal like X-Men or like a multiversal version of Charles or something like that. I don't know.
I will say from there was no Patrick Stewart, Professor Xavier in this movie, and I think having him opposite her, I think, would have added some value to that. Like, not necessarily long term, but at least in a scene together, right? To show they are the yin and the yang, the good and the evil versions of the same character at the end of the day.
Yeah, because essentially you're just looking at a facsimile of Charles Xavier. It's like, oh, she's bald, she rolls out in the wheelchair, she kind of talks fancy like Charles Xavier talks fancy, but she's just, evil. Okay, I get it. But like I said, even with all of those negatives, like, so much else is working so well. It's so easy to look past it. Yep. It's hilarious. I always forget every single time I go in to watch a Deadpool movie, whether it's a rewatch or seeing one for the first time, just how good the action is. Like, it's always, I forget it's super I always remember it's super crude. I always remember it's super funny, but I always forget about the action and the violence and just how also entertaining that is as well.
I'm going to raise my hand there because I think a normal Marvel movie has maybe 3 action scenes at most, like a first act, second act, third act. This it just kept giving us action scenes over and over again, and they're so well choreographed. I will say there's a scene at the end that involves a bus down a street, and it's all done like one pan shot, right? The camera's moving down the street, and the action just moves from left to right and back to left again. and it's just really good. There's, we'll talk more about them in detail later, but like the action scenes, when you mention that, like there's so many in this, and they're so well choreographed that they're just so much fun, because these characters, again, probably could die, but they don't die, and like seeing Wolverine's claws through like Wade's eyeballs through his mask is just hilarious to me. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah, you're not going to get this in another movie, because they would die, and these characters can just mutilate each other to no end, and they're like, yeah, we're the same when we get out of the car.
It's like Wolverine and Deadpool are like two feral cats, and throughout the movie, you just throw them into a box and they just start fighting each other, and it's hilarious. It's so funny. They really lean into this this really, really gruff version of Wolverine. We've seen him in other movies, and we've seen his character kind of develop and kind of like soften, where we see his humanity a little bit more, but he is like just so fed up with Wade throughout this whole movie. It's just hilarious to see him have to follow through with this story arc. He like is so sick of it, and it's a great motivator for conflict.
He has got bottled liquor in his hand in almost every scene as well. I think, and it's, I was going to say, this is a Hugh Jackman Logan where he smiles, I think, twice in this whole movie, right? Like once at the beginning, whenever Wade puts the gun up to his head, and then at the end, whenever everything's kind of resolved and we get the ending. But between that, like literally, this is the most disgruntled Hugh Jackman we have seen on screen, like for a prolonged period of time. At the same time, but it's so he carries it so well. He just carries that Wolverine persona so well.
Yeah, so I feel like that's a great. I think we should start with the first chunk of fun surprises, which is Wade traversing through the multiverse with a temp pad.
I'm gonna stop you there, because a lot of people, if you've seen the movie, you're probably listening. I should have brought this up at the beginning of the show. Movies you should watch going into this include Logan and probably Deadpool 1 and 2. Other than that, you probably don't need to watch any other movies. But I think Logan was important because the Deadpool universe is apparently set in the Logan universe, and we find that out, and we get to see what I think is one of the best opening scenes, Mike, is the mutilated corpse of Logan, his adamantium bones being used as weaponry before Deadpool goes to find a live Logan.
I absolutely loved it, and it's a great payoff too if you're keeping up with like Kevin Feige quotes at all, which not the normal mass audience is going to do, but like there's like quotes out there like, oh, we are not going to disrespect the ending of Logan, and then to see Wade just like just wait, and he just pulls up his bones. It's so funny. Everything, the whole concept of it is hilarious. Of just like, it's almost like the best move that you could do. You either leave it alone and let it lie in peace, or you do the exact polar opposite, cranked all the way to 11, of like, I'm digging up your body and I'm going to murder people with your bones. It's like, it's exactly what the audience would want on the other end of the spectrum.
And then they use the bones to introduce all the players, right, in the movie, the directors, the all the stuff, and it's written into the bones, and you're like, oh, this is just like when they talked about the ass hats and stuff in the first Deadpool. I'm like, they keep it going. It's a payoff.
And it's not just funny too. I actually think it's pretty interesting, right? This is like the type of thing that you would only really see show up in like, like a one-off or like a branched like comic book storyline where like Wolverine's dead or something and they have to like dig up the bones. Like, yeah, his adamantium bones would just be left there, and I think that's really cool. It's like a fun comic booky thing to like throw into the story. So beyond just being hilarious, I thought it was clever.
Yeah, and the payoff there obviously is when Wade puts the Wolverine claws on his wrists, right? And he's like, at one point he gets stuck in someone's ass and then someone's crotch on the other, and he's like Wolverine's really hard kind of thing. So it is crude and it's funny, but then he has to go find a live Logan to save his universe, right? I mean, one of the structures of the anchor being, he's got to go find a live Logan. And this is really where we get to see a lot of versions of Logan that we're familiar with from the comic books, or things that people have wanted to see over time, Mike. So I'll let you kick that off.
I mean, the favorite one that I feel like nobody talks about as much. I mean, it's only been 2 days, so I can't say nobody talks about it. But, everyone's talking about the Henry Cavill cameo, or everyone's talking about the reflection of, Hulk in the...
It is
the claws. I think Small Wolverine is the best, the best
accurate
single one.
Yeah, so
it's so funny.
But because they pay it off like, oh my god, there he is, and he looks normal at the bar, and then he jumps down and falls down. And he calls him comic accurate Wolverine. That is great, and it's just such a little thing because everyone's like, he needs to be comic accurate, and they're like, well, here he is, and you're like, oh, that really wouldn't work. Would it?
It's like, I get it now.
Yep, and then he jumps into the Age of Apocalypse. Logan, he has the stump for a hand and like the big mutton chops and like the wild hair. Who's like,
yeah, there's like a lot of deep comic book cuts in there too that I'm sure I'm gonna have to wait to see some articles
side by sides,
where are these from, because like the Cavill one, like, oh, that's funny, we all know what he looks like and everything, but there was one where he's like, looks like he's crucified or something, I think. And I don't know what that's from.
That's from a comic cover, and I've actually kind of got these pulled up here. That's from the Uncanny X-Men cover. It's just a cover art where like he is like crucified on the X over like a bunch of skulls. So it's funny because really it's like the cover, and I don't think that's the whole world, but like they play up that world where Deadpool arrives and he's like, it's like raining blood and everything, saying he's like, actually it's not you, it's me. We got the patch version of Logan as well at the casino, which was a little fun thing.
Yeah, that was the one everyone thought was going to be a different actor. Like, oh, that's going to be Daniel Radcliffe for sure. Yeah. When he turns around, like, no, that's just Hugh Jackman.
And then what I saw it the first time, but it really clicked on the second time, is actually Old Man Logan on the porch with the shotgun, sitting there like saying, I'm like, who's this one? Oh, that's really literally the Old Man Logan from the Old Man Logan book, rather than the Logan movie we got. So it was fun to see, all these were Hugh Jackman except for Henry Cavill, the Cavalrine, as Wade called him there with the motorcycle. But then obviously it pays off when we get to our Logan, who is the comic accurate Logan with the suit, the comic suit accurate Logan, if you will, which we see for most of the trailers. I'm actually really surprised they put him in that suit so early. I didn't think, mentally, like, oh, they're gonna wait till the end to reveal his as Wade called it, his jammies. But he literally comes out of that the Tempad thing with the suit on before they get sent to the Void. So I was thoroughly impressed with that along the way.
Yeah, and I think that kind of segues too into the TVA component of this movie, which, if you're a normal listener to the podcast, I preach about it all the time. The single most interesting thing happening in the MCU right now is the TVA. Everything from just visually how it looks to the stories that are telling, and it's also connected to maybe one of the best stories happening right now, which is Loki season 1 and season 2. Mm-hmm. So it's a big boon to this movie to have the TVA being like kind of this component that's moving the story forward for Deadpool. Yeah. I think they did a smart idea of like, well, we've kind of rehabilitated the TVA over the 2 seasons of Loki, but we still need them to be antagonistic. So let's kind of bring in this sleeper agent who's doing his own rogue thing.
Yeah, like I guess the TVA was rehabilitated, but when any company has new management, right, not everybody goes along with it on day one, and that's kind of what it was. He's like, I don't want to wait for universes to die naturally. I just want to kill them. Just get rid of them the old-fashioned way like we used to, and that kind of was Paradox. Motivations kind of weak, if you will, very exposition-y dump. We have a Time Ripper, and I'm going to tell you about the Time Ripper. I'm like, okay, a real villain wouldn't do that, but he had that like pompous British kind of thing about him where he was also kind of like goofy. He's like, how like he's like maybe like not a Bond villain, but like more of like an Austin Powers kind of villain, if you will, a little bit how he kind of felt about himself. And I was like, oh, he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's more up his own ass about stuff, if you will. Like he's eating a sandwich where like he's like, Deadpool's like, are you getting a bit peckish telling us the world's gonna end? He's like, no, I'm eating my feelings. And then that's right before he prunes them. But he's very, like, I didn't care for him as much because I'm like, the TVA obviously is gonna figure this out at the end. But the TVA, I love the aesthetic of the TVA. They carried the show over identically, right? With the old tube TVs, like the grids. There's like a lady doing like, it looks like kind of like CAD drawings and the stuff. But when they show the screens with Deadpool, like it never paid off yet. I think this is going to be a Secret Wars payoff, Mike. But why is Thor crying while he's holding me? Like that Thor is holding Deadpool moment that he keeps bringing up. I'm like, they didn't pay it off in this movie, but by God, I guarantee you they're probably going to bring it up in Secret Wars. Like this will be
the fact that it came up twice, if I remember correctly,
three times total.
Okay, so if it was just once, I would have considered it a one-off joke. Mm-hmm. So I got to imagine, and also, yeah, like if they're putting a big Avengers movie together with tons of the characters, you got to think Deadpool's going to slide in there.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. And they kind of do that, like the TVA. What's her name? Hunter B-15 or whatever it was. She's like, we're going to be using you guys later. I'm like, okay, yeah, that was a nice quick payoff. But then we get to the Void, and I think, Mike, if that's cool, we get to the Void because the Void is, I would say, a good third of the movie, if not more. Like almost half of the movie takes place in the Void.
We spend a lot of time in the Void, and luckily they attempt to at least vary the landscapes and locations as we go through the Void.
Yeah.
Because just by the very definition of the word, like it's kind of like when we are watching a Star Wars TV show that takes place entirely on a desert planet.
Yeah.
It gets pretty boring after a while.
Yeah.
Luckily, at least they varied up our locations a little.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't just one biome that we've seen ever, but I mean, they land. And we get, I think, one of the first exciting fights. Well, the first exciting fight is with the Logan skeleton, and then we get into this fight scene, which is where Deadpool and this Wolverine he has with him fight or do like a standoff kind of thing. And what I love is there are some slow motion moments in this, Mike, and I was watching it, but a lot of the fighting happens in what appears to be real time. With the swords and the claws back and forth, we get to see Wolverine get on all fours and kind of run at Deadpool like he would like fight in a real fight, rather than just like, oh, I'm gonna like walk up and be kind of. So it was really cool to see the fight happen in real time for a bit, and see them kind of shoot and stab each other over and over again as they were, kind of dealing with everything. A lot of people in my theater laughed at the 20th Century Fox logo that we've obviously seen from the set photos months and months ago. And then watching it the second time, I saw a lot more references before, like a big helicarrier in the background and some other stuff. But I think this gives us our first big cameo, Mike, that I think nobody really touched on as much in the news as everybody else. And that is the reveal of Chris Evans in this movie. Very, very early on.
I loved it. It was so much fun. I should have been able to discern what was happening, because even Chris Evans kind of in his cloak and everything, I was like, he doesn't seem very jacked right now. He seems kind of trim. I understand he hasn't been in the role for a while. I was like, is this kind of like a...
Well, he's got the red and blue arm he points with it, right? He's got the red and blue on his arm, so he's obviously in his Captain America suit. What other character would Chris Evans be playing, Mike?
Yeah, and it being like the Human Torch was so funny, because the Fantastic Four movies are like a big blind spot for me. I don't really have any nostalgia for them. I don't go back to them and watch them. They're not in my heart like the original X-Men movies were. Yeah. So
and I don't think they are for anybody, so you're fine on that regard.
So that was just absolutely hilarious reveal, because I was also thinking of like the meta side of it too, of just like, half the people in this movie theater at the very least think it's supposed to be Captain America. And this is just a very well crafted reveal.
And
for the
Deadpool
time that this movie
hypes it up. He's like, he's gonna say the thing, he's gonna do it. He's like, Avengers, and then he says flame on, and you're like, everyone's like, oh my God, is that Chris Evans kind of thing? Mm-hmm. While they're fighting the not fighting, they're taking on that. But then that's where you get the Pyro character from X-Men who can counteract the flames. And then they drop Chris Evans out of the goddamn sky. He busts his nuts on the sign and then like falls all the way to the ground. And I'm like, boy, he really went all in on this. Like, he doesn't care if he's getting the hell beat out of him in this movie, and that's fun. And then we saw this in the trailer. Wolverine fights Sabretooth and cuts his head off, and then they do the Mad Max thing, where he's like, this is your leader. We have her head, and like, Furiosa. And I was like, oh man, they are really just like jabbing at all the IPs across the board. So.
I mean, I would say overall, this next kind of category of cameos of some of the older X-Men villains like Toad and Pyro, and I think technically there's a Juggernaut in there.
Well, there's a bunch of X-Men, but the only two characters I think who returned were Toad and Pyro. The other ones were all played by secondaries or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that they're good additions, but I don't think really anybody was losing it after seeing them, right? It was kind of more like, oh, that's cool. This makes sense. This is a smart idea of bringing in these villains so we can pad out the numbers.
They were like, oh, who's the Juggernaut today kind of thing, even referencing like it wasn't Vinnie Jones in that Juggernaut thing, and it wasn't like Ryan Reynolds' Juggernaut. So they do reference that a little bit. And they get in there, and then we meet Cassandra Nova to all the other stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then I think one of the most gruesome scenes is whenever Cassandra pulls the body off of Chris Evans, and his like guts just crumble there. And he was like, oh, you shouldn't have that. But also, he was killing the budget. And I'm like, oh, those fourth wall references, like they're just coming at us left and right. Yeah, and this is where I gets into a couple things. We get to see Nice Pool right after this, right? Nice Pool and Mary Poppins, a.k.a. Dogpool, which I thought Mary Poppins was a very generic name. I thought they were going to do like a Yondu reference, but the dog was just Mary Poppins. And Ryan Reynolds just let that dog lick all over his face the whole time with his mouth open and everything.
It's a nice little warm-up to the fact that, we're going to be seeing other Deadpools in the movie. He's like, oh, I'll help you. There's a place where like some of these rebels hide out. And I was kind of expecting a Loki season 1 situation where they go into a bunker and we get a bunch of different Lokis. So that's what I was prepared for. I was like, oh, he's going to go into this hideout and we're going to get all of these Deadpool variants. And but along the way is probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is they're sharing that minivan together.
The Honda Odyssey, and he hates the Honda Odyssey.
And I can't recall the exact song that was played as they're kind of like driving through the countryside.
So it was Avril Lavigne's "You're With Me" or "I'm With You." I'm With You is what it was. Yeah.
And then just the all-out brawl that they have inside of that Honda Odyssey is hilarious. It's energetic. It's fun. It's violent. I love the running bit of Deadpool's baby knife because it almost feels like a joke added in post-production of just like, oh, let's get Ryan back in here in the booth, and every time he pulls out the little knife, just have him say baby knife. And I just think it's hilarious. It's super funny, and they just destroy that van. It's so hilarious.
And it goes from night to day. Like they fight through the night even and kind of thing. And the song "You're the One That I Want" playing on the radio while they're doing it's great. And then you find them the next morning, Deadpool has been strapped in with all the seatbelts, and Logan's passed out. And then we drive away. Someone randomly takes a car, and we find a little hideout, which actually has the Scarlet Witch, the marble, or I guess that granite carving of her from Doctor Strange is like the roof of this building they're in, which was fun. And we get to find the Resistance, Mike. And do you want to tell them who the Resistance is? We want to split this up? Because
man,
this is mind blowing.
So this is the cameo reveal. So I would love to know if any of your two theaters had any big reactions to this, because it's been fun going online, hearing people talk about their movie-going experience when the big reveal happens, because there is a cameo, there is a character for every type of fan that's in the theater, and I can't recall the order in which they come out. So
I think the order is important because the first one is Elektra. Jennifer Garner's Elektra appears, and I think that had a small tepid reaction. I don't think she's not the draw that everyone is. Nobody remembers watching Daredevil and Elektra. But
I feel like it's a great way to prime the audience. Of just like, oh, we have a returning hero from a long forgotten, I guess, Daredevil franchise returning.
And she is obviously Jennifer Garner is a popular actress. Everyone knows who Jennifer Garner is. So huge win.
It's like, oh, they could not only could they get her, but they got her back in the suit for a movie that was universally panned. So I was like, okay, we're off to a great start if they got her in the movie.
Exactly. And then I would think my most surprising one actually is next, and that was Blade. Wesley Snipes himself, who famously had beef with Ryan Reynolds in Blade 3 because they were both in Blade 3 together. They were able to patch their differences and bring him back into this movie to do that. And that's where the audience started getting wild. Like, that is a 1998 reference. Like, we literally have 26 years between those two movies, and he's back in the Blade role again.
And everybody knows that role because everyone knows who Wesley Snipes is, even if they look at him and maybe don't know his name, but they know that face, that is the vampire guy, even if they don't know that it's Marvel
haircut,
or the history behind it.
The sunglasses, exactly. They were not, if you don't watch that, you know who it was. I will say the most shocking thing that got through this, and it wasn't the cocaine references, it wasn't the things, but the fact that he's got to say the word retarded in this movie was wild to me. Like, I was like, I get it. Like, he wasn't being called that. He just misheard him. And I'm like, that's probably how they got away with it. But boy, did they get away with that. Like, right on the cusp of that.
It's like a perfectly threaded needle of, like, I can't imagine a scenario you can manufacture where you can kind of pull that off exactly. Yeah. But the next character that comes out, this was the cameo for me and you. This is the cameo for the people that listen to the podcast, that follow the news, that keep up with all of the headlines and
the
clickbait.
What could have been and all the things that we, when things fall through and they don't come to fruition, this is that cameo for it, Mike.
Yeah, this was me just absolutely, like, losing it. This is me going feral. There's no other point in the movie in which I, like, lost it as much. Like, I was, like, looking as soon as it happened, I'm looking around at people like, is anybody else? Is this just for me? Is anybody else getting this?
Yeah.
And obviously that was Channing Tatum strolling out as Gambit. And it's just like, oh my God.
Comic accurate suit Gambit too. Like, not Origins, Wolverine Origins Gambit. This is changing with the head mask and everything kind of going up with the big trench coat. And the running joke was, no one could understand him with this Cajun accent. Like, Deadpool's like, it's been a while since I've seen Sling Blade. Could you run that back for me again?
What is it like? Is your vocal coach like the Minions? Or
where
something?
is your dialect coach? Is it the Minions? Yeah, absolutely great.
Surprisingly, I know it was hammed up for the role and for the jokes, but I actually thought that his Cajun accent, being somebody who has never lived in the South, so I'm not a good judge of character voices there, but I thought that was pretty good. I was like, hey, I mean, I'm going to watch this movie. Yeah. This might have been okay. I mean, in the era in which it was announced and the people probably involved in making it, I'm sure it wouldn't have been good, but I was enjoying Channing Tatum as Gambit there for a minute.
It works in this scenario, and obviously they can play off of it and kind of poke at it a little bit. And he had that, and then before we do it, like, I think Gambit's line, he's like, "I shot out of my daddy's dick ready," is what he said, and I was like, holy shit, they're just giving all the good lines to fucking Channing Tatum right now, aren't they?
Yeah.
So,
and he even had something where he, like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it alluded to, like, oh, I never even existed or something, or I was born here in the void.
Like, Blade's like, the TVA didn't even give me a chance to fight my world. Electra's like, they know it because problems, and he's like, I don't even know, was I born here? I don't even know, like, what happened, kind of thing.
And then we have more of, like, a touching, like, more story poignant
the
cameo,
thread, which from the start of the movie, which was Logan, this carries right through to it, right? With this reveal.
Yeah, and that's seeing everyone's favorite character from the Acolyte, Jackie.
Daphne Keene. Daphne Keene's who the name you're looking for. But she was obviously was X-23/Laura in Logan, and they've brought her back here. I think that version, because she had the sunglasses, right, at the end, the little kid glasses. So
I mean, the way I looked at it, at the beginning of this conversation we've been having, you talked about, Deadpool exists within the Logan universe. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would entirely agree with that, or if I entirely care whether Logan's universe lives, because at the end of Deadpool, where Deadpool universe lives, because at the end of Deadpool 2, he had Cable's time traveling ability, which kind of, for all intents and purposes, kind of feels like it's like the temp pad anyway. So like Deadpool has kind of had this ability to traverse the multiverse before Marvel even kind of created the multiverse on the big screen. So he kind of just is anywhere he needs to be that's funny. Like when he's talking to Happy Hogan at the beginning of the movie wanting to become an Avenger, I never tried to pinpoint exactly what universe he was in.
It says Earth 616.
Care.
It says Earth 616 on the screen.
I just wanted it to be funny. Like, Deadpool, you can be wherever you want to be as long as you're making me laugh.
Well, it doesn't matter. The whole point was Logan was dying in the future. They even showed the scene. Was like, that was it. So that's why I'm like, okay, I don't think it's that version because her timeline wasn't pruned yet, but like it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I'm not worried about which one it is. It's just that the one that we know because we haven't seen another X-23. That's who it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I thought it was a clever catalyst for we have this Wolverine character. We need to get him on board so they can sneak into Ant-Man's dead corpse of a fort.
They don't sneak in there. Let's not mince words here. They didn't sneak into the fort. They blew their
that's
way
right. I think
into
there
a
is
rocket launcher.
I think there is a I think there is a rocket launcher if I remember right.
Because Blade has it. He's like, there's only one blade, and he kind of like winks at the camera. Then Deadpool like turns towards the camera. You're like, oh yeah. So that's how they get into it.
It's a clever emotional way to get Logan on board because we never really get any, much like Cassandra Nova, we don't really get a whole lot of background on this gruff version of Logan. We're told he lets the X-Men down. He should have been there to help them. We never really get to see it. And you kind of start to get the feeling of just like, we don't have the time to go into any of these characters' backstories to get you more emotionally connected to them because we're just trying to put the craziest shit in front of you on the screen and make you go feral like I did when I saw Gambit. Yeah. So it's just like, oh, what do I want? Do I want a little bit more background on Logan or Cassandra Nova, or do I want to see Channing Tatum as Gambit on screen?
Just
and as like superficial, as superficial as it sounds, I want the cameos in this type of movie.
The thing is, I would have loved to see Logan's thing if they were able to bring back the characters from his movies, right? The original X-Men movies, if you will, and put them in their comic accurate outfits rather than the black leather. But I think also budgetarily, and probably a lot of them were like, we don't want to come back. I would say they probably were just like, we thought about it, can't do it. Oh well, move on, and that's fine. But they were able to tell the story and then use Laura as the the catalyst. Like, hey, Logan, you were never the right person, but you were always there when it mattered, kind of thing. And then they drive their Honda Odyssey into Ant-Man after they blow up his hands with the rocket launcher. And this gets to another great fight scene. I think this scene here with literally the 6 of them taking on some X-Men and some other goons. Zazzle, right? He was in there, the red Nightcrawler, if you will. He was poofing around. It was fun to see Gambit get to use his cards all charged up, right, against people, blowing people up left and right. Blade got to use his knives and his little glaive. Elektra got to use her size, I guess, a little bit. I always forget X-23 has claws in her foot, like one claw in her foot that she gets to use to, like, I think she cut Juggernaut's ankles off so they could get his head to take Cassandra down. So it was another fun little action scene, seeing all the powers kind of come together. And like they're send off, right? Like they have to get up there, they have to stop Cassandra and go down that route. So this was right before and everyone's seen this in the course of the sling ring, right? This leads to the sling ring scene that we see. But this was the farewell, if you will, for all the characters that they could have brought them back. The end of the movie, Deadpool says, "Can you save the people who helped us?" And the only person we see in the end credits is Laura. So I don't know if she'd saved Blade, Elektra, or Gambit for later. I feel like that's like a quote unquote hanging Chad that we could come back to later if we needed to.
Yeah, like it seems like, oh, maybe we see them again in Secret Wars in a Battle World or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sling ring, it's clever, how are we going to get them out of there? Like, well, didn't she say like I peeled this off like a dead body of like a sorcerer or something
a sorcerer came through and I wore his skin around for 4 days. And then and he had this on his body. So she opens up the portal. And then she's like, the only reason she helps them is because Pyro is working with the TVA turned on her. So They're like, she's like, okay, you saved me, I'll let you go back to your thing. But he's like, you got to beat Eliath, who's going to be here in like 4 seconds. So there's that slow motion run, slow motion, the in-fight scene, to send everybody off, send them on their way. And then we get back to Deadpool's universe with the was it the Time Ripper? Is that what it was called? I think.
Yeah, I think it's called a Time Ripper. It's just in like a subway station off of an obviously a downtown city set built somewhere in Atlanta. But it leads to another really cool action scene with some clever direction.
Where the merch,
all of the Deadpools.
Yeah, this is where the merch comes in, because we've been threatened with the Deadpool core the whole time. And we're like, we've seen all the baby pool, kid pool, head pool shirts and toys, but I'm like, where the hell are they in this movie? We're in the third act. Where are these characters? Come to find out, the Deadpool core, they're just they're dumb, but they're good fighters, according to Nice Pool. This was another the recurring. This is the second time for Dog Pool, right? To show up, because they come out. Nice Pool's like, okay, whatever. Oh, it's over. Here are all the Deadpools. We got to fight them. So then. Deadpool uses Nice Pool as a shield, but he doesn't have regenerative abilities, which was really funny, because all Deadpool wanted was his guns, the gold-plated Desert Eagles, from him. So we got that. And we got to see, this is what I was talking about earlier, the scene where the camera's running down the street sideways in steady action, and Logan and Deadpool are fighting literally all the other Deadpools. But I will tell you a couple things. Number one, Lady Deadpool, Mike. It was Blake Lively's voice. It was not Taylor Swift's voice. A lot of people were thinking it was going to be Taylor Swift. It was not. It was Blake Lively's voice. Kid Pool. Yeah, Ryan Reynolds' daughter. I
had no idea.
Yes, also Baby Pool was their youngest daughter as well. So, but the cussing from that was the kid. Cowboy Deadpool, Matthew McConaughey, and then
wild.
and then Head Pool was voiced by Nathan Fillion. So, couple secret cameos in here. But this is one of my favorite scenes, Mike. The single, and I quote, single shot where Deadpool and Wolverine are fighting all the Deadpools down the street together, and Wolverine's got his mask on. He put his mask on. That was a big moment in my theater when he put the mask on there to fight everybody and leaves it on almost till the end of the movie. I think that was big for everybody to kind of see that. But yeah,
this was a great kind of payoff of kind of everything we were promised. Of just, we get a ton of Deadpools. We finally get to see Logan and Deadpool side by side, and fully fleshed out visually. Yeah. There's a shot at the very end of that. I guess if you want to call it like a left to right tracking shot, where it ends when they bust out the back end of the bus, and like it's like a perfect comic book splash page of, you have like the claws out, like Wolverine.
He's got the pose like with his like arms are way back, like he's like coming to attack, and that was my money shot. That was my money shot.
It's
right
great.
There.
Hyper violent and classic Deadpool style.
Yeah, and this is
there's like a ticking clock element to it as well, where they're trying to just get through it as quick as possible.
Yeah, and they take him out, and they're like, Nice Pool, he didn't regenerate. They're all regenerating, and he's like, shit, these regenerate. There's that funny one with the samurai one. He's got like the baby arms growing back already a little bit. Mm-hmm. But then we get another Deadpool roll up, and he's like, other Deadpools, it's okay, he's with me. And you come to find out it's Peter, his buddy Peter.
Yes. Yeah, we've been talking for like 50 minutes here, and we haven't mentioned Rob Delaney yet, who is at the beginning of the movie. Kind of forgot that he shows up in the second movie.
Yes, carryover from X-Force.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just a great guy. I love Rob Delaney in general. He's got a great show. I think it's on Amazon Prime called, I think it's Catastrophe. He's great in it, hilarious. So it's always a pleasant surprise to see him on screen as much as we can. And I love the whole mythos of kind of every Deadpool has a Peter, and they all just love him. And it's great. So this was a hilarious way of like, oh yeah, how are we going to like convince all these Deadpools to like, not keep attacking them since they can all regenerate? Like mind control and stuff like that is kind of dumb and rot, and we see that all the time. So seeing Rob Delaney just come in this ill-fitting like suit, and he's just like, "No, everyone be nice." They're like, "Okay, cool, let's just hang out with Peter."
Yeah. Oh yeah, Peter is a myth, and everyone's like, "All right, have fun." And Dipple's like, "Have fun playing with my Peter," and then they go down to the thing. They've got to stop the Time Ripper device by becoming a conduit across the antimatter, regular matter. We get some like because Cassandra Nova is in this universe, by the way. I forgot about that. She came over. She's like, I'm going to use this to destroy all realities, and there's only going to be the void, and I'm going to be the god there. Cool. Great. Good for her. So Deadpool and Wolverine. Wolverine's like, I don't have anything good in my life. I let down my X-Men. I'm going to go sacrifice myself for this. Deadpool comes in, does about like an extra 2 minutes of like goofy things at the door window before he goes and does it. Like he does like the steps down and the pretend flying. Hilarious, stuff like that. And then, Deadpool can't get to the things in time. We're on a ticking clock where the universe will end if Cassandra gets done. Then Wolverine comes in, they grab hands, his spikes come out, they become the conduit for these two things, and Wolverine's shirt blows off. His
shirt is hilarious, and he still has the mask on too, which is extra funny.
They do the ab shot, and Deadpool looks at it and looks down. And he's like, yeah, and then
it's like, and it's literally like the power of friendship that saves the world. Like, however you want to physically manifest it, it's the power of just like two bros withstanding all of this energy. And then we haven't really talked about it from kind of like a plot point element, or I guess this is something that would possibly carry through the rest of the MCU. Is the what do they call, like a key person?
Anchor beings. Anchor beings. Yeah, we talked about
anchor being.
Yeah, so that's why.
Which I think is clever. Yeah. Like there's at least one specific person that where I guess literally the universe or the sun does revolve around them. If they're not there, like what's the point of the universe? Which I guess if multiverses are infinite, that kind of makes sense in a way. So you need your anchor being there. But if I remember right at the end, were they saying that like you can kind of like rewrite where an anchor being is like supposed to be or something?
Something's happened. So the whole point of this was Logan died. Deadpool, that was just the anchor being for Deadpool's universe. Deadpool tries to find other Wolverines. He finds this one, brings it back, and they're like, well, they never really specifically say no or yes, because Paradox was like, you could have done this with any other Wolverine and it would have been fine, but you chose the worst Wolverine. So at the end, whenever they turn it back to normal, I guess like they've solved it by putting a Wolverine in this universe, I guess. So I don't know. It's very, very wonky and not explained very well, but we've heard rumors that this will play into things going forward with Secret Wars, right? The Spider-Man possibly being a thing, an anchor being, Wolverine being an anchor being, because obviously Spider-Man was not in these movies at all. They had a little flip action, but no real Spider-Man stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the anchor beings are going to be huge, but it was just kind of more of that was the, he was the MacGuffin they needed to save the world. Wolverine ended up being the MacGuffin, right? To bring that back for the anchor beings. Then we get the really weird, Hunter B-15 or whatever it was shows up, and she's like, who's this? And Paradox is like, oh, those are some brave men who went in there. They never, they're gone now. There's nothing we can do. I'm not doing anything off grid. And they show up, and he's like, fuck, kind of thing. So the ending was just a nice little bow wrapped on it. But I did think it was funny that they said the Avengers invented shawarma because of the post-credit scene with the Avengers. And then we get to see the party with Wolverine and Deadpool, and now he's in that universe, I guess. So
yeah, he's got friends now. They did just like how you mentioned, they kind of hand wave the ending a little bit of just like, oh, it's time travel, multiverses. Don't worry about it too much. I would say if you were to bring over those mechanics of the story into another Marvel movie that I am kind of being told as an audience to maybe take a little bit more seriously, I would be more critical of it, right? I am obviously giving a lot of leniency to this movie just because I had such a good time. It's so funny. This is kind of peak Ryan Reynolds of not only in his career, but like his character as well.
The jokes are hitting so fast, you don't need to take in the story because you're already laughing at the next thing he's saying, right? Like the nod, the winks, I would even say the charisma between the actors, like, they're not like, it's not sexual tension, but like the buddy cop kind of dynamic works really, really well in this movie, right? With that.
Exactly. And I think there's definitely some story baggage that another MCU writer is going to have to tackle for whatever next film or Disney Plus series kind of has to tack on to the events of this movie, whether it's a Deadpool 4 or a Loki season 3, if that's even feasible in the future.
I think it'll be post Secret Wars, or Secret Wars will talk about the anchor beans, but yeah, like I don't need. Thankfully, the end of this movie doesn't make us worry about that at the end of the day, right? Like the post-credit scenes aren't even like, what's next? It was like, this is the end of an era, is what those two kind of gave us, which was great.
Yeah, but we are recording this podcast on a Saturday afternoon during San Diego Comic-Con. And in just a few hours, Kevin Feige is going to be taking the stage at Hall H and doing some, as we've been told, big cinematic reveals for what's in the future for Marvel. And this should hopefully be the big kind of re-correction of everything that has kind of been going wrong. They're going to be pivoting, their release schedule and timeline and refocusing in on what we want. Hopefully we will see. So I think the future or what happens here at the end of the Deadpool movie, hopefully we should be getting some more clarity here in a couple hours. And this is a great plug to say subscribe to the podcast, because tomorrow we will be recording a big recap of everything San Diego Comic-Con, everything Marvel Hall H. So this is really a part one of a part two of like the nerdiest weekend of our 2024, Chris.
Absolutely. And I would say an asterisk, for those expecting a Deadpool 4 announcement tomorrow, do not. This is opening weekend for this movie. They will be talking about money and contracts for a couple months, right? Before we even get anything in Deadpool 4. So don't for everyone else, don't expect a Deadpool 4 announcement tonight. Is just be next 2 years, maybe 3 years worth of films.
And also, like, I think you kind of have to envision the Deadpool franchise maybe differently than you look at like the Captain America or Thor franchise, because there's so much more fun to have here, and the formula is so much looser. You can kind of do whatever you want with this character. Like, I would say some people would consider this a negative, but I was never really attached all that much to Deadpool's friends and family outside of Blind Owl in his other movies, because they're hardly in this movie at all. Right. Like, it's actually really funny. He's doing all of this to save all of his friends, but we just have to hope that we're emotionally connected to them from the other movies, because we don't get any of them hardly at all in this movie.
Yeah, and I would say,
but obviously nobody.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say nobody really missed them all that much.
This movie
so like
was not about them. It's about the send-off of the Fox universe at the end of the day, right? Like, that's what it was. It's like, oh, the people you have cared about in other movies, we're going to have a send-off for them in this movie as much as we could, is what it felt like.
So I would imagine the next time we see, I would wager a guess, the next time we see Deadpool, he's not in a Deadpool movie. He's showing up maybe in an Avengers movie, maybe a sequel to the Thunderbolts or something. He shows up in that. And then the next Deadpool movie we see, I don't really know. Is it called Deadpool 4? Do they do something funny and title it like, Deadpool 4 Search for More Money or something like that? I'll like Spaceballs kind of joke.
I will say, I mean, if you I would say I put both of these actors in Avengers Secret Wars. I think Hugh Jackman has one more in him, and it'll be Secret Wars. Even though they joke they're going to make him do it till he's 90, I think they will give him, I guess, an MCU send-off in Secret Wars, probably. So they can work towards their X-Men saga that they're obviously working towards. But I would say maybe put Deadpool in the next X-Men movie. What about that? Like, would that where you want to see him?
Well, that's clever. And I mean, clever in a way of how do we deal with this extremely raunchy fourth wall breaking character in another franchise or movie where that doesn't really fly, right? Like, imagine watching like the next Black Panther movie and Deadpool's in it, right? Like, you're gonna have to neuter the character quite a bit to make him fit in there. And also, like, he can't be, I mean, he can be breaking the fourth wall, but he can't be breaking the fourth wall in that type of movie. So I think whenever he's in another film that's not his own, I don't think he's going to be a big influence on it. Yeah. He will be pushed to the back a little bit more just for the sake of that's the only way this character can exist. And from what I can remember reading kind of bigger event comic books where Deadpool has been included but not the main character, that's usually kind of how it is. Yeah. He's funny comedic relief that pops up every once in a while. I think he does break the fourth wall in like a comic book panel that's not his comic, but you'd have to be.
Here's the thing:
it's going to be a strong seasoning. Basically, what I say if you put him in a different movie.
Yeah, but you're not going to get Ryan Reynolds' budget to like his cost to put him in those movies. So he's going to have like a Quicksilver action scene from like the more recent X-Men movies, like where we're going to get Deadpool for a thing because he can do some stuff that we can't normally do. You're going to get a scene, a good action scene, 5 to 10 minutes of him, and then he's going to piss off the rest of the movie. Kind of thing, or not even be in there until the end. Or unless they work out a deal where they like, we can put Deadpool in these movies without Ryan Reynolds in the suit, but Ryan, you're going to be the voice of him. You're going to be like a voiceover thing. But I don't think he'd even go for that, right? I think he's too precious with the character, and I think everyone would be like, look, you made us a couple $1 billion. We'll let you be precious with the character for a little bit.
Well, they killed off the best way to incorporate Deadpool of just put Nice Pool in your movie because then it would have been totally in character.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, this. As we talked at the top of the podcast, Deadpool is a gold bar minting factory. Yeah. He is cranking out dollars at the box office. He is not going anywhere.
The merch.
This is not a send off for the character. Yes,
not just the movies.
Ridiculous.
You can buy Deadpool stuff year round. Everybody's like, hell yeah, I want Deadpool stuff year round. Like,
yeah, who would have thought that Deadpool 3 would have been more toyetic than Inside Out 2 this year? I bet more merch is sold on the Deadpool side than on the Inside Out 2 side, which is really tickles me.
Yeah, I've got too much. I've already got too much anxiety. I don't need to buy more anxiety.
But I mean, to wrap it up, great movie. This is a crowd pleaser for sure. I would easily recommend this to anybody. I don't think you have to be super hardcore into any of these universes. If you've just existed and have casually watched movies over the last 25 years,
I would even
you'll find something to pull from this.
The younger generation might find his jokes funny and timely, but I don't think they'll get the references. People who've been watching comic book movies for the past 25, 30 years are going to get it even more. So I think there's something here for everybody, and it's a good time. It's a good thing. Again, it's not the strongest thing. I will say I enjoy before we talk the post-credit scenes, one of them is a Time of Your Life, the Good Riddance Green Day song over a montage of all the Fox movies, like behind the scenes footage, right, of all the Fox movies. In some clips, I thought that was really, really good. That was really fun to see during the credits. And then the last scene blew my socks off because early on we have Chris Evans and Deadpool's like, he said all these things about you, Cassandra, and like they're just like really, really raunchy, awful, R-rated things, graphic things you'd say about how much he disliked her, and everyone's like, he would never say that thing. And then you get a camera footage of Chris Evans saying those exact words at the end.
Yeah, the little GoPro security camera shot in the cage.
He's like, I'm gonna prove that he said all these things, and then you watch him say it,
which is a great little bait and switch, and also a hilarious way to end the film of just Chris Evans, America's favorite Boy Scout after being Captain America, just railing. I'm sure he had a great time saying all that stuff too. I wish I could have been on set when he got to go through all of that.
All that line, yeah. So, I guess come out of here. Highly recommend from all of us. Watch it as soon as you can, and come back every week as we talk about the future of the MCU. I wouldn't say this is a revival, but it's a good step in the right direction. I agree.
Yeah, it's obviously not going anywhere.
That's right. Well, Mike, if people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at, buddy?
Well, they can read my webcomics at liferewardsrisk.com and pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or a video game system of the same name, because I've been playing the hell out of Marvel Rivals this week and all the way through next week. They put Jeff the Land Shark in this game, Mike. A land shark. Don't even know what that is. But anyway, if people know more about the show, our regularly scheduled episodes that we do every week that we will also be doing for San Diego Comic-Con this week, where can they find that at?
Oh, all you got to do is visit superheroslate.com. That is the anchor being of our show. That is the website. That is a domain in which we own, and we host all of the stuff that you need. So if you want to catch up with all the San Diego Comic-Con news, tomorrow we're going to have all of that stuff in our show notes. Chris is very, very thorough when he puts those notes together. It's a very, very useful tool. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listening to find podcasts like our own. We got merch at superheroslate.com/store. Reach out. Let us know, what did you think about Deadpool and Wolverine? What do you think is the future of the character? We'd love to know your thoughts.
Which
we love
popcorn
our
bucket
super
did you
fans.
get? Let us know which popcorn bucket you got.
If you want to be a super fan of Superhero Slate, it's so easy to do. All you got to do is share the show with a friend. Share the show with a buddy, and we'll be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll see you guys, I guess, tomorrow.
Yeah. Bye.